Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the Brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants.
Brethren, welcome back to the Fort Worth 148 Masonic Podcast. My name is Abe Kirkendall. I'm the chaplain and past master of Fort Worth 148.
I am Brady Patton, current Wurzel Master of Fort Worth 148.
I'm Cody Cox, the current Senior Warden of Fort Worth Lodge number 148.
I'm Omar Galiazzi, current Junior Warden, Fort Worth 148.
Sean DeBon, immediate past master, Fort Worth Lodge number 148.
Well, welcome back, brethren. It's great to have all of us around the table again for another recording session.
Talking to the mic.
Thank you all for attending and being part of this great conversation. Sir, that's a little too close to the mouth. But thank you all for being here. We're glad to have you. We hope that it's a great listening experience for you. We are glad to be here tonight. We have a couple of different topics we're going to talk about tonight. First, we're going to be warming up with a little bit of a conversation around the Oddfellows and all of those wonderful folks over there in that organization.
Because we are all extremely odd fellows.
Specifically, the International Order of the Oddfellows.
Yes, and we actually have some people who, at least one of our roundtable here has some insights into that. So we're excited to have that conversation.
And about half our lodge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we also have another topic we're going to talk about a little bit that has to do with some questions that we get frequently as an organization when new prospective members come. And kind of, just throwing it out there to see what the brethren have to say about it, some thoughts on it, and get some ideas going around about it. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into our roundtable about the Oddfellows.
So I am currently the Vice Grand for Fort Worth Lodge 251, and on February 19th, I will be installed as Noble Grand, which is the equivalent of Worshipful Master for my Oddfellows Lodge here in Fort Worth, Texas. So Oddfellows was started by a gentleman named Thomas Wilder in 1819 up in the Northeast in Maryland. And he brought it over from the UK and kind of started it there, and it kind of grew from there. Back when Texas was its own country, Thomas Wilder actually brought it to the Republic of Texas in 1841. And technically the first charter in the United States given to a outside country was the Republic of Texas. So it's kind of interesting. Very similar to Masons. A lot of, if you go back through the history books, a lot of Masons were Oddfellows. A lot of Oddfellows were Masons. Anson Jones, who, all Texas Masons know, was a Grand Master of Oddfellows in Texas and also a Mason, a Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Texas. A lot of very similar. You can pretty much walk into an Oddfellows Lodge if you're a Mason and pretty much catch on very quickly. The gavels are the same. Some of the degree work and some of the stuff that gets read in the degrees is word for word some of the stuff that we have in some of our degrees. Kind of one of the big differences are in Oddfellows, we allow females. So it's a co-ed fraternal organization, which I've grown to enjoy. It was a little bit different at first, kind of going from Masonry to Oddfellows. But I love it. It brings a different perspective on stuff, different ideas, a lot more creative ideas than, some of us have.
Was it always like that? Was
No.
Oddfellows always male and female co-ed?
No, so kind of like Masonry, Oddfellows started off as just a male fraternity, and then the women were part of the Rebeccas, which would kind of be equivalent to kind of like the Eastern Star. But due to, kind of like Masonry, we're losing members every single day. They decided to allow women in to try to keep it alive and keep it growing. I've brought in probably about 4 people from our lodge into Oddfellows. They're in Fort Worth, and I know Houston. Shout out to Greater Houston number 6. They are doing a lot of great things, and they're bringing in a lot of people. A lot of Masons are starting to join it down there. One of the things I kind of struggled with in the beginning, and I think it's just coming from our lodge, right? Because we are I don't want to say we're strict, but we hold ourselves to a higher standard on, for degrees, you have to be in all black, you have to have a suit, for stated meetings, at the bare minimum being business casual, right? It's taken very serious on the dress code. And I remember when I went for my degree, I showed up in a suit, there's people in there in, jeans, t-shirts, shorts, and kind of felt a little bit out of place. But that's normal over there, right? You show up how you want, and everybody's okay with it. It's a very more relaxed kind of atmosphere where people from kind of like Masonry, there's people from all walks of life. In Oddfellows, I know one of the things that is a little bit more different and kind of something that we're going to talk about today on the main subject is Oddfellows do a lot more charity work than what most lodges, at least in the state of Texas, do. So I know, like my lodge, we have 2 clothing drives. We have a spring clothing drive and we have a winter clothing drive. And so what that is you bring a bag of clothes and we give you a bag. So then you go around kind of our back area and you just go around, you just fill up your bag with whatever clothes you can find, and then you leave. And so we help out with that. We do a lot of blessing bags for the homeless, and we do a lot of like bingo nights, little charity events like that we raise money for. This year, I'm still trying to decide on which charity that I will be supporting. There's a good one I was looking at. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Tunnels.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yes. Tunnels to Towers.
Yeah, Tunnels to Towers. Which help veterans, start businesses and stuff like that. So that's kind of one of the charities that I'm looking at. So, but kind of a little quick rundown.
Is that the one that did the scale of the building downtown?
No, this one's helping veterans like try to create like small businesses and entrepreneurship.
The person you saw climbing the tower in Fort Worth was probably somebody high.
We'll get at that part later.
So one of the questions that came to my mind as you were talking about the co-ed nature of the Oddfellows now is how membership became an issue and they decided to allow women in. I know that has been a topic of conversation in the Freemason world. So how has that either benefited or not benefited? Has it made a difference to allow women into the organization in terms of membership, in terms of activity level? How has it affected the membership from your perspective?
I think in a way it's kind of increased it because now you have another source of membership, where before it was just you could only be a male to join. Now you can be male, female. Honestly, I really don't see, like when we go into lodge, we're just brothers and sisters, and just kind of the same way, when we go in, we're just brothers. There's no argument. There's no like bickering, kind of like what you hear in Masonry about, if we allow women in, it's going to be just a whole bunch of arguing. And we've never had a single argument. We've never had any kind of negative discussions. And I actually think it benefits our lodge because at least the sisters that we have in our lodge, they're very creative and they're very good at brainstorming ideas. So kind of like as men, we get stuck on, let's do this, and this. And they're like, okay, what if we do this charity, or what if we do, for the past couple of years, we didn't do one this past year because Halloween landed on a Friday. But we do a haunted house in our lodge. So we create a haunted house throughout our lodge for the kids and stuff like that. Like, I don't think like we would have came up with something like that. So I like it because it brings in a lot of different ideas and different ways of looking at life and stuff like that.
Awesome.
The women members, are they mostly spouses or just random? How do you get women? members?
So it's almost kind of like very, very similar to like Daughters of the Nile, Eastern Stars. Most of them, at least in my lodge, they're either a spouse or a daughter of an odd fellow, or their fathers, great grandfathers were odd fellows or Rebecca's, and they just kind of like, you know, us, like, you know, if your dad was a Mason or your grandfather was a Mason, you're just kind of just following that line. It's kind of what I see in my lodge.
Do the Rebecca still exists?
Yes. So the Rebeccas do still exist in the state of Texas, and actually to run, and this is something that's a little bit different in Oddfellows. So we have 4 groups in Oddfellows. So we have the Oddfellows, which would be like Blue Lodge, and we have the Rebeccas, we have the Canton, and we have the Encampment. And it is highly recommended that before you run for a Grand Lodge office, that you need to be a member of all 4, because as Grand Master of Oddfellows, you kind of deal with all 4 organizations, and you know you hear their business, and to hear their business, obviously you have to be a member of it. So so you have to join all 4 and be a part of all 4.
When you say Grand Master, what kind of territory does that Grand Master cover?
The entire state of Texas.
Okay, so it's like Texas.
Yeah. So thank you on that. So the one major difference in Oddfellows is it's pretty similar to Freemasonry up until you get to state level. So you have Oddfellows Lodge, which you're a Noble Grand. And then once you go out of the East, then you become a Past Grand. And then you're eligible for the Grand Lodge degree, which will get you into Grand Lodge session so you can vote. Then you can run for a Grand Lodge office, and you can become Grand Master of Texas. Then we have the World, or what's called Sovereign. So then you can run for a Sovereign office, and then you can be Sovereign Grand Master of the International Order of Oddfellows. And then that's the United States, I believe Italy, Denmark, the Netherlands. So you're pretty much the Grand Master of like most of the Oddfellows in the entire world.
So there's not like a grand encampment. You'd have an encampment that would be the part under the Grand Lodge.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, actually no, because the encampment actually has like I think he's a brigadier general, and he runs the encampment side and the Canton side. Or the Canton side, you have a general who is very similar to the Patriarchs Militant, or the Patriarchs Militant is very similar to kind of like the Knight Templars.
Now we're digging in way deep.
Yeah, they look very similar. But you also have like kind of like a Grand Master equivalent to that side of
That's
the
us trying to dig
organization.
into the dependent bodies. So it's kind of like the commandery would be the encampment.
The Canton.
Or Canton. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
The encampment, when you join the encampment, it's kind of like it's kind of designed like a leadership mentor kind of group. Like you should kind of be like helping the lodges and stuff like that become better and stuff like that.
interesting. Next.
Well, has there been anything that you've learned, while being an Odd Fellow that you feel is applicable to Blue Lodge? Is it something that you're going to bring with you as a leader in the Blue Lodge? Something that you've learned at Odd Fellows, or is it vice versa? Is it you feel like what you've learned at Blue Lodge is something that you can take with you to Odd Fellows?
So one part that I would take from like our lodge to the Odd Fellows is just being a little bit more consistent with like the meetings and learning the work and like putting on really good degrees, because we've got a lot of younger guys and gals that have joined our lodge who are kind of like 148, right? Like, you know, at a certain point in time, 148 was kind of on the low end, right? You know, there wasn't a lot of excitement in the lodge, and then we started getting all these younger guys in, and they want to learn the work, they want to put it on correctly, they want to be proud of their lodge and want to say that, you know, we do the best work in the state. And have people come from all over the world in the United States to come visit our lodge. And that's kind of where I see my Oddfellows Lodge is we're getting a lot of younger guys and girls in who want to do the work correctly and want to learn the whys, like why is this degree this way and why are the teachings this, and what does this word mean, and how to properly execute a degree. So I want to kind of take like how we do floor school in Blue Lodge and take that to Oddfellows and start putting on like floor schools and start learning the work. So when we do degree rallies or just individual degrees, we can perform them to the best of our abilities. And then maybe from Oddfellows into Blue Lodge. And we've kind of already started this, but like we do a lot of like bingo nights and, some charity work and stuff like that. I think it'd be kind of cool to kind of bring some of that over. I know we had a joint Masons Oddfellow Dungeons and Dragons night, which was a big hit. I get a lot of questions when we're going to do the next one.
I think I've asked you 3 times.
Yeah. And so bring some of that over, a little bit more different kind of fellowship than, just kind of what we do already.
If you want exclusivity, D&D and the Asylum, you can only get it one place.
Yes.
Us.
D&D and the Asylum is awesome.
Yeah.
How does the ritual work? Is it similar to the way we do things? How do you learn it?
So that is one big difference in from Blue Lodge to Oddfellows is we do have a book that we can read from and read the degrees, because the degree parts in Oddfellows, they're a lot longer sections that you have to memorize. So it's very difficult to try to memorize them, especially when you're doing Masonry and you're involved in a whole bunch of stuff, which is not an excuse. But
Omar's a past grandmaster, by the way. We say he's into a lot of stuff. He's into a lot
for 1 hour.
of stuff.
For 1 hour. 1 hour. But yeah, so we can read the degree parts in Lodge. But same way, there's technically 4 degrees. There's an initiatory degree, and then there's a friendship degree, a love degree, and a truth degree, which kind of like Blue Lodge. They're stories from the Bible or have some kind of biblical teaching that teaches you about friendship, about love, and about truth when you're going through those degrees. And some of our degree work is actually part of the Oddfellows degree work, because I know there's some parts where I'm going over it. If there's like a Mason in the degree, I'll look specifically at him as I'm telling him what's going on. I'm looking right at him like, hey, you've heard this before, so you should know what this means. So, yeah. Any other questions?
What's the Texas membership like? Can you talk about it? Just for comparison's sake.
So it is pretty low. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's very few.
Like less than 1,000, or
I would say it's probably close to 1,000 or 2,000 is the rumor that I've heard.
Which is odd, because at one time in the United States there were actually more Oddfellows than there were Masons.
Actually, in the state of Texas in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there were actually more Oddfellows members in the state of Texas than there actually were Masons.
we talk about comparisons, the sirens start going off.
Yeah, really. Jeez.
So it's dwindled down a lot. Unfortunately, lodges have had to turn in their charters. My lodge, we call ourselves a museum lodge, because unfortunately a lot of lodges have merged with our lodge. So we have a whole bunch of charters and a whole bunch of items from other lodges' history throughout our lodge, and we keep them and we preserve them to keep their history alive. But on saying that, the guys down in Houston have actually just reconstituted, and I forget the name, I apologize, but Oddfellows Lodge in San Antonio. So that part of Oddfellows is growing down there in the Houston, San Antonio area. So we just reconstituted a lodge down in San Antonio for the guys down there.
I'll ask since Evie's not. Do y'all do endowments?
We do endowments.
Are they more than $50?
They're what?
More than $50.
They are more than $50. So our lodge dues are $75 a year. We own our own building, so that kind of helps. And unfortunately, with lodges merging with us, that unfortunately helps.
400 members. Yeah.
Yeah, and then selling off other lodge properties and stuff like that has helped out a little bit.
You get to do that?
Yes.
Oh, we can't do that.
Oh, gee,
Yeah.
are we gonna? Yeah. Or do you have to get permission?
Yeah, there's a lot of legality stuff like that kind of similar to the Grand Lodge of Texas. I believe our endowment is like $1,000.
I know Blue
yeah.
Lodges that are less than that.
Yeah, I know Blue Lodges that are less dues than what my dues are in Oddfellows.
Is the how's record keeping? I'm fairly certain that my great grandfather in Tulsa, Oklahoma, was an Oddfellow. But like, how is there a way I can check?
Yeah, so very similar to like Freemasonry. You just got to write the secretary, or if you know somebody who's an Oddfellow, they can probably help you.
Yeah, I know a guy.
Yeah, I did charter a lodge in Oklahoma.
Where is the Grand Lodge in Texas? Like, where is
In Corsicana.
Okay, Corsicana.
So
Where
we
is
That's the big building there.
Yep.
What do they call it? Event center.
Yep.
Oh, and your Grandmaster gets a vehicle.
Yes. So that's very cool. So our Grandmaster has a black SUV that says IOOF Grandmaster on it that he uses while he's Grandmaster to travel around the state and visit other lodges, which is kind of cool. Yeah, so we have so our Grand Lodge is in Corsicana, and then our retirement center, so we have a retirement center like we do
right?
with Masonry, that's in Ennis, Texas.
Oh, cool. Is the same qualifications, 5 years vested interest, or?
I don't know on that one. So.
I feel like we should start lobbying for a Fort Worth Lodge 148 conversion van or something like that for the worshipful master to do his work.
It'd be nicer than the golf cart.
Why would the senior warden say this now?
I'm just saying, there's nothing like a
Hey, you know what?
like a Regency
Do you just
conversion
want
van.
a white van that says free candy on the side?
Listen,
Is this-
you
I've
throw
got-
free candy at me, I'm gonna get in that van.
I've got
did-
4
we
more
did
months, then it's your budget.
We did get a lot of ugly looks at Grand Lodge driving around in the golf cart.
Again, this is what happens when you raise your dues. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say.
You get dirty looks from those lodges that are recalcitrant when it comes to raising
Ooh,
lodge
SAT
dues.
words. Evie's always got the SAT.
Ooh.
I would just numbers wise, just for comparison, say Texas has just under 60,000 Master Masons. The number, it's within a couple of grand of that.
Yeah.
So
Which is always
Arkansas is 9,000.
Right. Which is always conflated. A lot of people talk about like the number of Master Masons we have in Texas. If you actually go and look at that number, it's actually a little bit lower because they count
Doubles.
dual members and stuff like that. So it's like somewhere around the 60,000 like total, but of that I want to say it's like 15,000 or something like that are
Yeah.
And
dual members.
And honestly, there's probably a good percentage that passed away that aren't marked off. Because
Yeah.
we have
I
lazy
know a
secretaries.
couple of Texas Masons that count for like 15, 20 people. 'Cause
That-
they're-
Oh, because they're members of 15
yeah,
lodges.
They're keeping 15 lodges alive right now, that one person.
They're
Yeah.
never at home.
Yeah.
Never.
and there's no reason for that.
Hey, you said something cool. So does does every state have a?
For the most part, yes. Every state does have an Oddfellows organization.
Oh, Brandy just pointed to that. He visited the Grand Lodge of Arkansas Masons annual communication
This is their monitor.
and
This
got
is-
their little monitor
Is that-
book for
is that monitor?
comparison.
The words are the same size. Or the letters are the same size. It's kind of.
Why did I just think of Hagrid and Harry Potter? Baked you a cake.
I like it better.
Made it myself. Words and all.
Good Lord.
Let's read from it. No,
it's
let's
not too
not
bad.
read from it.
But it made me think of that because I wanted to ask about like the rule books. Like I know here in Texas, especially Grand Lodge wise, our law book looks like War and Peace. And in other state jurisdictions for Masonry, their entire law book is the size of that Arkansas monitor.
Yep.
How does that work at the grand level and even the international level for Oddfellows?
So it's kind of interesting because we have 2 law books that we have to follow. Well, I guess technically 30 because you have your bylaws for like your lodge, and then you have the state laws that you have to follow. But then also you have the sovereign laws that you have to follow, which coincidentally and very similar, the Grand Lodge of Texas laws are pretty similar to the sovereign laws. So as long as you're following that, you're pretty in check with the sovereign.
And I'm guessing, do they meet every year for a communication like we do, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Grand Lodge is in March, although the one big difference is kind of like at least in Texas, our Grand Lodge technically starts on a Thursday and then finishes Saturday night or Saturday afternoon. Oddfellows Grand Lodge is almost a week long. And this year we are actually having in August, Sovereign Grand Lodge will actually be in Frisco, Texas this year. So there's going to be Oddfellows from all over the world that are going to be here in Frisco at the Sovereign Grand Lodge session there.
In August, they'll love the weather.
Yeah, they are going to have fun because especially like overseas, like in the Netherlands and the UK and stuff like that, they're very proper in the way they dress. So a lot of tuxes and suits and stuff like that. So they're going to love the August heat in suits. And
Just do it inside the Star. It's fine.
Yeah, on the ice rink. Most of the people in Europe think that 81 degrees is a heat wave. They're going to get to Frisco, Texas in August. It's going to be 104.
I remember when I was stationed in Germany, I think it was 2007, they had a heat wave. And it got up to like 90 degrees and people were dying.
I was there and I remember people were dropping like flies.
Dying.
But that was one of the things is I always had to explain to my students when we were looking at a map. I was like, you realize that Germany is the same as like southern Canada. Texas, if you go across, is Morocco.
Yeah.
Like imagine going from Canada to Texas is like going from Germany to Morocco. So,
Cool.
Yeah, it should be a very interesting Sovereign Grand Lodge this year. I'm trying to get one of our members, Brother Billy Hamilton, to come and speak at Sovereign Grand Lodge because he has a great story on a member of actually Fort Worth 148 who I believe like ran the Red Cross here at the Carswell Air Force Base, and how the Scottish Rite and the Sovereign Grand Lodge of Oddfellows got together and to create an organization so they can go help the troops out in Europe during World War II. So I'm trying to work on having him go and speak at Sovereign about that story, since it's going to kind of bring in the Masons and the Oddfellows together and how we came together to help the World War II guys while they were fighting overseas.
One of the things that I think is really cool about it is kind of what you've done with some of our members coming over from Blue Lodge to Oddfellows with their spouses.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us an opportunity to go and participate in lodge with our wives. It's kind of neat. And I know my wife is interested, when we're not playing travel ball with our children, which is never. It gives them a kind of a chance to see what it's like, outside of Eastern Star or Daughters of the Nile, the Masonic wives organizations.
Yeah, and I like that too, in the sense that y'all can come to lodge together, and they can actually participate in kind of like a Blue Lodge setting, and kind of have that say so, and make those decisions to help grow it and kind of do the fun stuff that you necessarily don't have that in kind of like our Blue Lodge. They just kind of help out on like little parties and stuff that we do like on the side, but they don't really have so much say in kind of what goes on in Blue Lodge.
What nights do y'all meet?
We meet on the first and third Thursday of every month. So we actually meet twice a month.
And the Shrine's second Thursday, all right? So they don't overlap?
I don't know about Shrine.
Okay. I know they meet on Thursdays all the time. I can't remember which one.
Yeah. So the Worth Commandery in Fort Worth meets on the first Thursday.
I knew there's going to be a conflict there somewhere.
Yeah, so that's kind of a conflict with me right now, is being part of Worth Commandery. I haven't been able to be as involved with that for the last year and this year coming up. But I kind of went in and told them that kind of from the get-go. Was like, hey, like, you know, I want to go through the orders, but, you know, I'm just saying, you know, up front, like for the next 2 years, it's going to be pretty scarce unless, you know, it's kind of, you know, you're doing something not on a first Thursday, I'll be there. But if it's on a first Thursday, then, you know, unfortunately, you know, for the next 2 years, I'm going to be out.
Understandably.
So if I'm sitting at home and listening to this podcast or watching it, and I'm interested in finding out if there is an Oddfellows lodge anywhere near me, where would I need to go on the interwebs in order to find this out?
So very similar to what you do, or at least what I do when I'm visiting another state, is just Oddfellow lodges near me is a good one. Or you can go to the Grand Lodge of Texas Oddfellows website, and they have, you can reach out to them, or they have a lodge locator kind of similar to what we have on the Grand Lodge of Texas. And you can find a lodge near you, or just find me on Facebook.
Are there clandestine Oddfellow lodges? Or irregular?
That was what I was going to ask too. You stole my question.
Good.
Are there fakers? Do they got fake Oddfellow lodges like we have?
Not that I know, but that's a really good question.
They'd be in Houston.
Yeah, they'd probably be in Houston or Dallas. There, as far as I know, there's not what we would consider clandestine Oddfellow lodges. There is something that's kind of very similar to kind of like Prince Hall in a way. It's called the United Oddfellow Order, or the United Grand Lodge.
We talked about it in our last podcast because we recognize them now.
Yeah, so we do recognize them.
Or 3 podcasts ago. Sorry, our timeline's good.
So they can meet in our lodge room and stuff like that. They have chartered one in Fort Worth. And they're building their membership up, and they actually meet at our Oddfellows Lodge.
Can you join both?
You can join both. So that is one. The big difference is because at least here in Texas, you have to be one or the other, right?
Prince Hall won't let you join another lot.
Yeah, so we can't join Prince Hall and be Grand Lodge of Texas, and Prince Hall can't keep their Prince Hall Grand membership and then join Grand Lodge of Texas. But in Oddfellows, you can join both.
You can be a member
both. Of both. Which is really cool, you know, trying to, you know, help keep that, you know, preservation and that history continuing.
I wonder, having experienced that, would you make an argument that we should push for something similar on the Masonry side?
The grenade he just lobbed at you.
Yeah, no.
You can run in the direction.
He didn't get any of these questions ahead of time.
Yeah,
by the
I did
way.
not.
This is all off the cuff.
No, I don't think so. Just because I think at a certain point in time, history starts getting lost. And
whereas
Masonic history.
Masonic history is being lost.
Being lost.
Did we get our tattoos yet?
I want that T-shirt. I'm telling you.
And this is something I know we've all talked about. Like, I really don't like how, like, we have to identify ourselves as like 4-letter, 3-letter, Grand Lodge of Texas, Prince Hall. You know, I want a day where we're just Texas Masons, right? It don't matter which side you're on. Who cares? Because, you know, the Prince Hall, Grand Lodge of Texas, it's never going away. Grand Lodge of Texas is never going away, and neither one of them needs to go away, right? There's way too much history with both of those organizations.
And they can be complementary too.
And they can be complementary. You can, you know, but I believe that the more we can work together, we can build off of each other and grow each other. Kind of, I don't know when this podcast is going to be released, so it might be a little bit late, but on February 28th, the Grand Lodge of Arkansas and I don't know the name, but the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Kansas and the Grand Lodge of Kansas are doing a joint raising. And it's the first time they've done one in like 10 years. So obviously they're working hand in hand very well together. And they're at a point where they're doing joint raisings. And I'm planning on being there. I'm going to do a road trip down, or I guess up to Kansas to go see what that's like. And then
mentioning Arkansas there, they do recognize Arkansas version now too.
So
I was there when it happened, but I was unfortunately 3 blocks away.
Yep. So
What happened?
Arkansas officially recognizes Prince Hall now.
Arkansas.
Yep, Arkansas. But what is it? It's South Carolina.
South Carolina doesn't recognize any of them. Louisiana recognizes the Grand Lodge of
Maine.
Maryland. And
Maine.
there was one other that recognizes.
Yeah, there's still unfortunately 2 states that don't recognize Prince Hall.
Is it Mississippi?
For shame.
Yeah, shame though.
For shame.
Oh, we've all aired our.
West Virginia recognizes the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Kentucky. So it's the whole thing about multiple jurisdictions in the same state.
Yeah.
That's why those states don't do that. At least that's the reason that I've heard. South Carolina, it's just South Carolina.
You don't think that's just an excuse
Shame.
reason?
Well, South Carolina is like huge Scottish Rite wise, and they've got a lot of power, and they don't want another
And
jurisdiction in their
it's
state.
South Carolina.
It's a,
Oh,
it's, a,
God.
it's a beautiful
It's
state.
South Carolina. We all know why.
What states should go away just because
But-
there's
I said West Virginia.
All right. On that note,
Anyway,
Well, having said that, thank you, Omar, for extolling the virtues of Oddfellows and giving us a primer on what it is to be an Oddfellow, how it's working, and all of those things. We really appreciate your insights into that. You have been a huge evangelist for the Oddfellows here in our lodge. I know several of our members.
and the York Rite.
Yeah, and the York Rite. I mean, this is Mr. Mason here, so and now he's also Mr. Oddfellow, and that is, I know 148 has been a huge success story in terms of getting new members and that are now part of the Oddfellows as well as Freemasonry, and it is really interesting to see. And who knows, maybe some more of the members around this podcast will become members of the Oddfellows in the not too distant
if you
future.
do come to my installation, I do have a petition already filled out and signed for everybody. So I
And-
just need your signature.
Already signed.
Already signed,
I already
ready
forged
to
all
go.
of y'all signatures.
wow. Congratulations on guarding that west gate. I'm just telling you.
Right, letting us in the door, that might be a problem.
here's to the death of Oddfellow. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. So
Joking.
with that, let's transition now into our kind of secondary topic. I don't know if we can call it the main topic, but it's definitely another topic that we wanted to tackle this evening. And that is this, it kind of comes out of conversations that we've had with our new candidate nights. Most people who've listened to this podcast know that 148, we have a new candidate night for prospective members. They come and they get to know us. They ask questions to kind of dispel any myths that they might have.
It's a parent-teacher conference.
It basically is a parent-teacher conference. And it gives them an opportunity to ask whatever questions are really on their mind. And one of the questions that we routinely get virtually every single time is, what kind of charities does your lodge or Freemasonry participate in? How do you guys give back philanthropically to the community? And those are questions that I think for a while we were kind of stumbled up by, because I don't think that many of us sitting around this table see Freemasonry as a philanthropic organization, so to speak. We definitely see it as an organization where we come to know oneself a little bit better, to get to know and understand ourselves, to explore meanings of life and philosophy, and to improve ourselves in many, many ways. Although I am resistant of calling us a self-help organization, there is a lot of self-improvement that goes on in our organization. But when it comes to charity, I'm not sure many of us would see our lodge or Freemasonry in general as a charity organization. Would I? Let's talk about that.
Notice
for a moment.
everybody's going towards the microphone.
Well,
Big
it's
breath.
kind of a big lodge or big city lodge versus little city lodge. The smaller, more community-centered lodge is going to have to do more charitable stuff. Where we're at, we have all the independent bodies in our building, plus 6, 7 other blue lodges. It's really hard to really find somewhere where we can make a difference.
Well, and also I think the question that I'm or the thing that I'm trying to like pointing at here is that Freemasonry in and of itself does not lend itself specifically to being a charity.
No, it even
That
says it
we
in
as a
some of our
lodge
stuff.
are not a charity.
So obviously charity is one of our core tenets, right?
Right.
But I think that word requires an understanding of nuance for what that means, right? Like, we are not a charity, just like we are not a religion,
Right.
just like Well, just like that. And
Well, and I would
think-
just juxtapose that with, let's say, the Shrine or the Scottish Rite. The Shrine has the Shriners Hospitals, and that is a huge part of what they do as an organization. It's central to, I think, their mission as an organization. Same is true in not such small part with the Scottish Rite, with the Scottish Rite hospitals, and how central the hospital experience is to being part of the Scottish Rite. I'm not saying that's the only reason that either of those two organizations exist, but it is such a large part that we could, I think, definitely argue that the Shrine and the Scottish Rite are both much more philanthropic organizations than, let's say, the Blue Lodge is. Is that a fair enough statement?
It is, but the Blue Lodge also raises brothers to be more effective in the community. Maybe not as a lodge as a whole, but as the person.
Yeah. So
Right, absolutely. And I think that's a distinction, though, that we will tease out. But Blue Lodge itself, like I said, is not necessarily
intended
geared to being a charity.
We are charitable.
Yeah, so that's the way that often I'm the one that fields that question at New Candidate Night, and that's the way I answer it. So you come to Blue Lodge, and through the experience that you're going to get here, the growth, the knowledge, we are going to help you to become a more charitable person. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to give more of your money away. It could be your time. It could be your participation in your community. But, you know, like Evie said, without saying we're a self-help group, and we want to grow the man so that he is better as a man, better as a steward of his family, and then better as a steward of his community. And you know, it's like the old adage goes, you clean your house, and then you can go and help others clean theirs, and then, you know, it spreads from there. So that charitable act can come out in your participation in the community or your workplace or whatever it is. You know, you just go and take those core tenets that we have as Masons and spread them with your actions. Be the example.
Sure. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about, we discussed this as we were kind of leading up to this episode today, about kind of this idea of toxic charity. I think that many of our lodges these days, especially in the urban areas, are really starting to feel the pinch of the needs surrounding us in our communities, whether it is the unhoused populations, whether it is school children that need, you know, uniforms or lunches or school supplies, whatever it happens to be. There's a lot of need in our various communities. And I think in urban areas, it's a little bit, we notice it more, but that's not to say that in more rural areas that there is not just as much need. It just might take a different form, I think. And so we were talking about this idea of toxic charity and how are we setting ourselves up for success whenever we view ourselves through the lens of charitable contributions, knowing that one of our main tenets is charity and amelioration of suffering. That's just what we are as human beings designed to do. How much of that lends itself to being toxic? And the reason that I brought this up and that this is kind of coming up, a guy named Robert Lupton, he wrote a book called Toxic Charity, and he identifies kind of what happens naturally during the charitable experience. We all know this feeling where we give money or we give something to somebody. What naturally happens? We feel good about that, don't we? And we want to do it more. And it becomes this very self-referential experience. It becomes less about the recipient and becomes much more about the person experiencing the gift of charity.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is when we give, it creates what Lupton identifies as 5 basic steps. The first thing that happens when you give charity is you get the appreciation. And that's kind of what I think most people who give to charity kind of thrive on. That's what makes us feel good. It gives us that serotonin bump that we all tend to enjoy. Then, but on the part of the person receiving the charity, they get that appreciation. Then that turns into, at the second time you do it, it becomes anticipation. then grows on the third gift of charity expectation. Then that expectation becomes entitlement by the fourth time that you give. And by the fifth time that you give, according to this scholar, that creates dependency. And that's why he refers to this thing as kind of the toxic charity cycle. Whereas we want to give because we get this great feeling, but at the other end of this, we're creating a possibility of dependency and toxicity in this charitable thing. And just so we're talking all on the same page here, I come from the church world, as everybody around this table knows. This is a conversation we're having in the church world actively right now in denominations, in different nonprofit work that I work in. This isn't something that's about politics. It's not about looking at things except in the realist sense that this is really a problem that everybody is facing in the nonprofit charity world. And we are in that world as nonprofits. So how do we fit into that? Let's talk about it.
I've jumped in head first too, because I transitioned from freight, for-profit railroading into nonprofit transit for my employment. So it's really been a hard and fast education, the old drinking from the fire hose adage. And you see a different side of it when you're on the inside. If you're working for nonprofits, or you're working for a city, or you're working for a church, your view of whatever issue you're talking about, education, homelessness, whatever, you see it from a different angle, and it immediately changes a lot of your opinions, and you have to really take the time to reevaluate everything that you thought previously, and adjust. So it's tough, and it's really nuanced too. That's the hard part, especially with, talking about those 5 steps, setting things up for dependency. It's a tough conversation. It's a hard topic to navigate.
Well, and I think an important note with this is that whenever I think about lodges or things that have been set up as charities, they always start with the very best of intentions from what I've seen. Mm-hmm. They see a need and they're like, we can fulfill this need. But the problem that I see is that eventually it's almost like when you start doing those types of charitable acts, it almost exacerbates the need. So this is what we're getting to with the expectation and that kind of stuff. So I'll give you a good example. I know of a couple of lodges where they are really struggling to pay light bills and get members in the door and stuff like that. But the very last thing that they ever think about not doing is their chili cook-off or whatever it is to raise money for scholarships for kids at the local high school level. And they're killing themselves trying to maintain this charitable act where it would be better for them in the long run to go, look, we can't give the scholarship away for a few years. We've got to stop and concentrate on us. And you hear when they talk, when anything is mentioned like that, it's almost like you're gonna kill the lodge, and it's like, no, we're trying to make the lodge better. So when I think about the charitable giving, I really truly believe that there needs to be some point where you step back and go, okay, we were doing this for a specific reason. Is the reason still there? Or is the reason that we're doing this starting to kill us?
Well, and I think that there's a distinction that we talk about, at least in the nonprofit religious space, where are we doing something for someone that they themselves could do for themselves? Mm-hmm. And it's in that space that problems start happening. And then the other thing, and I think that you mentioned this, and I didn't want to interrupt your thought when you brought it up, but it's this idea that we identify a need that needs to be met. And oftentimes when we identify the need that needs to be met, we often don't understand the nature of that need. Mm-hmm. We're not asking the community, what do you need? And this is where I think if I were to get up on a soapbox about it, I think Christianity has done this really badly, where they start identifying what the little brown people from other country need and deciding for them what they need. And so there's a great, I'm going to use the word great story about this church who got together and decided that a whole bunch of people along the border between Texas and Mexico needed refrigerators. And so they went around and they collected a whole bunch of refrigerators and they took them to the border and gave them to this community.
They don't have power.
They don't have electricity in this community.
Yeah.
So all they ended up with is a giant junkyard of toxic, like Freon, like all of these old electronic debris, because somebody wanted to do something good, because they wanted to hit their own gift-giving charity button in their head, rather than identifying a need in the community. And I think that that's often where we start, is we start with, what do we see? Let's fix that problem, but we don't always necessarily understand the problem. And so I think you brought up a great point there, is that there is a need for continuing education out there. But what other organizations are out there that are doing the fundraising for scholarships better than your lodges? And is there a way that you can partner with those people to do a better job rather than killing yourselves at the expense of your lodge or your own existence?
I know two issues that I've had to deal with. So I'm part of an organization. We have our own building, and I guess for the longest time, like even before I was a member, they had a homeless guy that had a van, and he used to park it in the parking lot, and he would sleep there, and he was kind of unofficially kind of like the security, because it wasn't in the best of neighborhoods, so there's a lot of homeless. And we used to pay him, like, I think every 2 weeks, we'd give him some money. We'd help replace he broke his cell phone, so we helped replace his cell phone. Just did a lot for him, but, in that turn, there were still fires set to, our front lawn. There were still people that were using our site for restrooms. So he really didn't do what he was supposed to, and we still just kind of kept paying him money. And then even the city got involved, where they told us, like, hey, like, you can't have abandoned vehicles on your property. You got to move it. So we got him off property, and then, we told him, like, hey, you can't be here no more, right? Like, it at a certain point in time, like, you just have to leave. But he doesn't leave because he's been there for so long. So, like, at what point, you kind of build almost kind of like a connection or like a feeling for him. So it's kind of hard to, like, put your foot down and be like, all right, dude, like, you have to go. Like, there's no, okay, you got to leave. But, if you sleep in the back, it's okay as long as nobody sees you, right? And then at our lodge, because we're right down the street from where all the homeless shelters are and all the rehab centers and all the
Charities.
Yeah, the charities and, the rehab for the drugs and alcohol. Some of those organizations were taking, like, homeless boxes of, like, food and clothes and, like, dropping them off on our front steps. And then we were getting all these homeless people that were, like, living in the bushes and, they were breaking, the locks and, charging you're homeless, but you have a cell phone. They're charging their phones and stuff like that and just trashing our building. And, me and Sean kind of walked around one day. We kind of figured they've caused over $10,000 worth of damage to,
and harassing members. You've been
Yeah.
harassed.
Oh yeah, we've had members been threatened. Me and another member actually had to draw down on a homeless guy because he said he had a gun, and he went in. He started digging through his bag, and luckily there was like 6 sheriff officers right across the street at the QT that saw us. But we had another homeless guy that tried to attack a member. So
Yeah, we bring our families to the lodge building.
Oh, yeah.
My kids are there every week, so.
Oh, we had that homeless guy that walked into
Yeah.
the building.
Literally helped himself to our dinner.
Yeah. So
And
we
all
had
it was just the wives and the kids in the room.
Yeah. So Sean got a text message, and he walked straight out of lodge and went straight downstairs. But yeah, we had to tell the charities, like, hey, like, cool, y'all do that, but stop bringing it to our property.
Yeah, it's so bad that we've actually got to take out all the bushes and change the change the landscape.
change our
You can't
landscape.
camp
Yeah.
there. And we've got a special number to call the police if someone's there. It's 911. It's
I
over
think
till they
that-
just call 911. But
Yeah.
I think that what Cody was saying about, you're worried about your charity more than you're worried about your own finances. And that becomes a problem. Like, it's, first of all, I know there's a lot of people out there that think that Freemasons control the world. We don't. Most of us are blue collar dudes.
you
I
don't.
wish we did, because I would
Yeah.
definitely not be living where I am or
Please don't
working.
ask us where the Masonic gold is, because if we knew where the Masonic gold was, half of our buildings would not look the way they do.
Yeah, we a lot of Masonic lodges are struggling to pay their own bills, and so to even assume that we could be a charity, even if we wanted to be, is a pretty far-fetched idea. And in the situations like Omar was just describing, it becomes really cost prohibitive, because if we're worried about fixing our roof or our elevators in our building already, and then we have the unhoused population causing tens of thousands of dollars of damage to our outside of our building, creating fire hazard, cutting electrical cords and creating fire hazards and things like that. It's not sustainable in the long run, and that's where the conversation gets hard. When, like your guy that was living in the parking lot, like at some point you got to say, look, man, we've helped you. You haven't helped yourself. Time to move on.
And in this conversation, what kind of keeps rolling over in my mind is that at some point we have to look at the fact that there are tons of organizations out there that are specifically set up to help unhoused populations that are much more equipped to deal with those types of things. Evie, I'm just going to mention. He is the executive director over at the UTA Wesley, and I actually serve on the board, and I'm a board member at the Wesley. And I know that there's been some times that we've had unhoused populations coming to the Wesley, and I know that it kind of bothered Evie a little bit, because he's a pastor and a servant at heart. But he eventually had to kind of come to the conclusion that he was there at the Wesley to serve the students of the University of Texas at Arlington, and that the unhoused population that was showing up was of a danger and a detriment to the students, and the students could eventually become reckless towards the unhoused population. So you were in kind of that predicament. So I remember the conversation that we had, and it came down to the fact that there are organizations in Arlington that are much better equipped to deal with the unhoused population than the UTA Wesley. So it's the same thing. That's where, as Masons, we need to start understanding that our organization is not necessarily set up and equipped to deal in these charitable ways with these particular types of populations and stuff like that. If it's schools, if it's unhoused people, if it's veterans and things like that, there are organizations that are specifically set up for those. So instead of us trying to grind ourselves into the ground, why not find ways of either getting our members connected with those charitable organizations so that they can do that charity, instead of relying on the lodge itself to try and do those charitable acts that it's not even equipped to do in the first place. Gentlemen, what do you think?
It's easier to partner.
Yep.
It's easier to partner than it is to try to reinvent the wheel.
And I think to that point, one of the things that I have seen lodges do is, like we were talking about, decide that we're going to raise this or do that. There's not a subject matter expert in the field of nonprofit management in most lodges. I don't think that's a radical statement. If your goal is to gather food for people who are food insecure, the least effective and the least efficient way of doing that is for us to gather, put
Just
$20
food,
on the table and go buy some food.
Give the Tarrant Area Food Bank.
And
they're professionals.
they are the professionals. The Tarrant Area Food Bank, local food banks, they on average can take $1 and turn it into 7 meals.
Yeah.
And that's because they have got the strategic partnerships and the things in place.
If you do want to
make
give it a
sure that
lodge,
happens.
go volunteer there. They'll happily take your labor.
Right. And there are ways that lodges and organizations like Freemasonic lodges can partner with organizations that can make a multiplying effect on charitable giving and charitable donations. So if you want to create a scholarship for somebody, there are organizations that you can partner with to do that much more effectively, that can multiply those dollars much, much bigger than what we as normal organizations can do. Whenever we decided that as a lodge, we wanted to create a long-term scholarship for a local university, did we just decide to invent the scholarship, or did we go to the subject matter experts and say, hey, TCU, why don't we partner together so that we can give you some money so you can put it into your multi-bazillion dollar pot of money, and through the miracle of compounding, keep this thing along and alive a lot longer than we can.
For any lodge out there considering it, make sure you make them apply at the Texas Masonic Charity Foundation website, because that's an untapped resource. Not talking about matching funds, they give out scholarships themselves.
Absolutely. So
free money.
I just wonder how much
We're at an hour, by the way.
As we're thinking about these things, how much do lodges really participate in this kind of toxic charity thing that we've been talking about? And I know that when we think about like our history, I know that we as a lodge have made the mistake. We've stepped on that landmine a couple of times.
I think a lot of lodges try to reinvent the wheel, or try to take on an issue by themselves when, like you said, there's already organizations out there that do this every single day. So it would be easier for you just to partner with them, and it's like, hey, we love what you're doing. How can we help? Right? Not like, hey, we want to start our own food bank here at the lodge. Like, no, it's not going to work. To Cody's point, you're going to bankrupt yourself. I think that's what I like about our lodge is we do very small charity stuff, but the way that we have so many people involved in the community and in other organizations that you hear about a lot of charity events, and we go out and we support them, right? So I know like past 2 years, I've worked with Tannehill Lodge 52 in Dallas. They do a Feed the Funnel every year in February. So I've gone the past 2 years. Last year, I took like 3 or 4 of our members to go help them. And this year, my son was like, hey, I want to go with you to go help. I think last year we made 64,000 meals in like 2.5 hours. So you can do all kinds of stuff. Like we've done blood drives, helped out the Scottish Rite with that, and just other lodges. So
March 7th, Heights is doing one.
Yeah, March 7th, Heights is
doing
doing
with
one.
Feed the Funnel, that wasn't something, I don't think that Tannehill came up with that idea.
Nope.
They partnered and they just said, we'll provide the space and the work for it.
That's exactly what
So
they
it
did.
wasn't something that they had to invent.
No, yeah, they partner with an organization kind of similar to the Tarrant County Food Bank, where they provide some money to help buy the supplies. Obviously, they provide the labor. There's a few hundred people that show up to do this stuff. So I think as Masons, I think that's where the best charity we have is just the people and the labor and the help that we can provide, not necessarily trying to figure out how to solve a problem, but how can we help you solve this problem?
Right. I think that's kind of probably where the conversation will come to a close, because
Cops are coming.
Yeah,
right, the cops are coming. They're just up the street.
If we had all the Masonic gold, we would not have all these cops, and we would have a 5th mic.
Yes. But I think that
2 mics in my bag.
The lesson that we probably should take home from this conversation is, first of all, if you're a lodge looking to make a difference in your community, don't do it by going out and doing things for people that they can do for themselves. Find out what your community really needs, and then partner with people who are already solving that need, or something adjacent to it, and finding ways that either you can participate or that you can help the people who are the experts. and be very wary of that impulse that we all have to solve a problem, in the moment, to make ourselves feel better, and really interrogate what it is that's driving you to wanting to solve that problem. Is it something within you that you're solving, or are you really interested in making a difference?
And I would challenge lodges that are watching or listening to this. If you're wanting to do something charitable in your community, because you're trying to get like more visibility in your community, I would challenge you to sit down with your officers and think about what were we not doing that made us invisible in our community, and is this charitable act going to actually make us visible again in the community, yes or no? I think that's a big thing that needs to be asked as well.
And speaking of visibility,
Speaking
of visibility, I think the universe has told us that it's time for us to wrap up this episode.
It's being charitable by telling us to shut up.
Yeah, shut up. Universe is telling us that. So put a sock in it. So as always, if you heard something you like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. We, of course, want to thank our sponsor, Bee and Brew, which is a great business here in the Fort Worth Metroplex, providing mead and coffee for the masses. Take advantage of the discount code 10% FTW.
No, FW148.
Dadgummit, I'll get it one of these days. FW148
You should
for
log
10%
in and
off.
use it right now to make
I
sure
know
it works.
I should make sure it works.
Yes, be charitable towards our good brother.
Yes, 10% off. Make sure that you are patronizing a local and Texas organization. We appreciate their sponsorship. And so with that, gentlemen, my name's Evie Kirkendall. I'm signing off.
Randy Patton, sign off.
I'm Cody Cox, signing off.
Omar Galeazzi signing off.
Sean Bond signing off.